Today, I'm going to be looking at a best case example of what happens when you reroll on League Start, and I'm going to use this best case example to explain to you why you shouldn't be rerolling. I know that it's easy to think that the grass is greener on the other side. It's easy to watch someone play their build and say that's so much better than mine, that's just amazing, I wish my build was that good. But please keep in mind, most of the time when you're rerolling, you're not fixing your problems, you're just shifting them. There's a time and a place for rerolling. If you're absolutely miserable, you hate how your build plays, and you'd rather just uninstall Path of Exile than play another minute on that character, well, then that's a valid reason to reroll. Or maybe you went into a build with a goal, you achieved that goal, and there's nothing really for you left to do, you're in a good spot, you're happy with a character, that's also a valid reason to reroll. But more often than not, I think people jump to rerolling because it seems so much easier. Oh, a new build will fix all of my problems. I won't have to worry about the fact that my gear isn't res capped, I'll just have new gear, and I'll just be res capped. Or I won't have to worry that my damage feels low, the new skill does a ton of damage. The problem with this is, it takes time to level. It takes time to sell your old gear, and it takes time to buy new gear. The cost of all of this adds up, especially if you don't progress very quickly to begin with, or you have limited playtime. Each time you reroll is going to set you back far more than you'd expect. So, in today's video, I'm going to break down the cost of rerolling so that you have a better picture of the risks and how far behind you could end up if you try to take a quick shortcut. But first, this video is brought to you today by me. I am very happy to announce that I now have an official merch store, featuring 3 completely original designs that I had commissioned just for this, starting with the I crangled all my gear and all I got was this stupid shirt. Perfect for anyone who's ever tried Scourge and felt disappointed, or anyone who's ever double corrupted anything. Next up, I have a special Nemesis-themed version of my logo. It is literally formed from the skulls of my enemies. Unfortunately, Headhunter buffs are sold separately, and currently not available. Then finally, the Envoy's words have been haunting us for over a year now, and the Eater of Worlds has arrived. So, you can celebrate this by wearing your very own Eater of Worlds inspired tentacle shirt, either with or without text. I also have several more minimalist pieces featuring my logo either in its normal colors or in a special red, green, and purple design to celebrate Siege of the Atlas. Special thanks to Sen for making these awesome designs. I'm going to put her Twitch and other socials down below. She is an amazing artist and I cannot thank her enough. The designs are truly outstanding. But back to the video. So to start with, why do I say that this was the best case scenario? This example reroll was done by my good friend Jason. He started on an explosive trapper, and if you want to know a little bit more about why he rerolled, I'm going to put a video that he made both in the card and down in the description below. So be sure to go check out his channel. He's a very experienced player, he knows what he's doing when it comes to crafting, and he knows what he's doing when it comes to acquiring gear cheaply. So when he decided to reroll, he had about 100 C from all the essences that he had been farming. He spent half of that, or 50 C, just on regrets to switch from a saboteur to an assassin and change some nodes on the tree. He then sold off some of his gear, which brought him back up to 90 chaos, bought a shield fairly cheaply for about 20 C, bought a wasp's nest, which was negligible and only cost 2 chaos, bought a perfect ungles for about 10 chaos, then swapped around to a better 6-link to make sure that he was spell suppression capped, which cost 30, putting him at 28. He sold his old one for 20 C, putting him at 48 C. So, in terms of total currency, he went from having 100 C to having 48 C. In other words, roughly 50% of his money was spent in rerolling, and that was after more or less selling all of his old gear for as much as he paid for his new items. However, here's where the cost goes much, much higher. It took him 3 hours of time to sell the old gear, to buy the new gear, and to switch over the character, including the research time to make sure the POB was right, make sure he wasn't doing anything wrong, and all that sort of stuff. Then he did about 2 hours of farming in lower tier content, both to level up all the gems so that it doesn't suck, and also get comfortable with how the build plays. This means we're looking at going from 100 C down to 48 C plus 5 hours of time. And that 5 hours of time is very significant. In fact, I would guess that if you're farming at a moderate pace, 5 hours of your time is worth at least 2 exalts, It could be more, it could be less. It all depends on how efficient you are. Jason's relatively efficient, so I'm going to say that 5 hours of his time was worth at least 2 exalts. This means that the total cost of a respec was about 2.5 exalts. For someone like Jason, who plays efficiently, plays a good bit, and knows the game, 2.5x, even early on, is not crippling. It's not that much. In fact, his build's better than ever now. He's killed the Eater of Worlds and several other bosses, and it's very smooth in Tier 16 maps. But that's still a significant amount of time and a significant amount of currency. It's roughly equal to half a day's worth of progress, and if you don't progress as quickly, if 2.5x is a lot of money to you on day 2 or day 3, that should give you pause about rerolling. It's not always just about the money you spend versus the money you earn. It's also about the time that you take to do it. Remember, time is by far your most valuable resource when it comes to Path of Exile. Ultimately, it's because time is the one resource that you only have a limited amount of. There's 24 hours in the day. You can't make more no matter how many mirrors you try to throw at it. All you can do is play as efficiently as possible. So again, if you feel like you're sitting in a place of success, your build has done everything that you wanted it to, and you're ready to move on to something else, then by all means reroll. Or if you're completely miserable, your build absolutely is not working, reroll, but make sure you pick something that you know you will like and that you know will work. Don't gamble again, because every time you do, you're setting yourself back further and further and further. Continually rerolling is the most common reason that I see of players being unable to kill endgame bosses, being unable to reach tier 16 maps, or being unable to feel like their builds are successful time and time again. There's a point where it's not going to be easy. You're not going to win for free, and you do have to put in the work. This was basically the best case scenario for a reroll, and it still cost a significant amount of currency and time. Many people would have spent all 100 chaos and taken twice as long. So now I'm going to do a short interview with Jason, asking him a bit about some issues that his current build is facing and why he's not rerolling now. Hopefully this will add a little bit more perspective as to, once you've rerolled, how you can get yourself out of a cycle of continuing to reroll, because it doesn't actually solve your problems, it just shifts them. So I just wanted you to tell me a little bit about, now that you've rerolled, and now that you're on a new build, what are some of the problems that you're having with the build, and why aren't you rerolling again to fix them? What are you going to do instead? Because I feel very often people get to the point where they don't see a path to fixing their problems, so they reroll, and then the new build has problems, but they also don't see a path to fixing, so they reroll again.
Right. So when I was playing Explosive Trapper, I kind of recognized, not immediately, but I did recognize that the build had a more fundamental problem than something that I could really fix without changing the whole build itself, with it being not having enough life nodes. Basically, I had the defenses were there, but when you're rocking 2,000 like 500 life in a bossing league, it's just not gonna sit well. So I guess the original thought when I was re-rolling, or what I was going to re-roll, was basically that well, the reason why I needed to is because it was fundamentally wrong. And so some of the things that I've encountered with this build, for example, I realized that I was dying to ailments pretty often, or becoming really low to ailments pretty often. So something that I can fix is that I just got ailment immunity. I got a shield that had suppression and ailment immunity on it, and then I reworked the tree to drop some life nodes because I had a little bit of excess. Got crystal skin, got thick skin, those nodes, got Ellie weak, or Ellie avoidant capped. So that was something that I could fix immediately. One thing that I am still encountering is that sometimes Spectral Helix kind of just bounces wrong, and it's very hard to hit enemies in enclosed maps, which is super annoying, and I don't really know how to combat that, besides just like luring them out, I guess. It's the best that I could do at the moment. So those are some of the problems right now, but they're being fixed slowly. But those things are non-fundamental things that can actually just be switched with, better gear or moving things around or just kind of changing up your skill points a little bit.
Yeah, why am I squishy is a very tough one because sometimes it is just you're getting shocked and you're dying because you're getting shocked. And once you fix that, you're fine. Sometimes it is that you have 2,000 life and that's a rough place to be in. You need insane defenses to get away with 2,000 life in Path
Yep.
of Exile.
I mean, even with that explosive trapper, I had good regen. I had Defiance Banner. Um, I was suppression capped. Uh, Determination. A bunch of flasks for evasion and armor, and even with all that defense and blind and the reduced damage taken to enemies that are blinded, it was still not enough with 2,500, 700 life or whatever I had.
It was probably
Um,
elemental damage that was getting you.
yeah, I wasn't ailment immune, which I think maybe could have helped a little bit, but I couldn't push past yellow maps, which was the problem. I couldn't get to the point where I could fix the problem, so I had to play something else. I'm sure that I could go back to it, but I'm not planning on it. This build is definitely destroying everything. So
Yeah. And in terms of one other question, when you rerolled and you spent all the time and you spent the currency, what would you do to avoid that slowing you down by too much? Because it's going to slow you down regardless. But there's a difference between this is going to set me behind by a little bit and my league start is ruined. I'm 3 days behind where I wanted to be.
one thing that is, if you can reroll to even your own ascendancy, if you can reroll to your own ascendancy early on, because it's much less impactful if you're 2 weeks into the league and you're deciding, hey, I need to reroll. You can just either make a new character. You're not gonna the early game disadvantage of rerolling isn't quite there anymore. I would say 2 weeks it's still there, but it's not fully there. But like this was day 2, and if I reroll the whole character, that's basically 6 hours of my time um, that I just lose. So early on, first few days of the league, if you're finding yourself needing to reroll, the first thing I would try to do is look for a build that you can maybe even in your own ascendancy. If you have to change ascendancies, it's not super great because it's 5 regrets every single point of your ascendancy,
Yeah.
which does add up pretty much. Um, but so if you can reroll in your own ascendancy, then that's going to be ideal. However, you can change ascendancy, so as long as the same class. Very heavily dis. I would very heavily like go against trying to reroll entirely and going just straight through the axe again. I feel like that is an awful thing to do if you are trying to have some sort of economic advantage in the beginning. It's certainly not something that you want to do at all. But when you're stuck with some builds that are not going to push you through maps, you got to do what you have to do, I guess.
Yeah. And I think, especially when people are concerned something might be too expensive, it's definitely the time they're spending rerolling is what's going to make the build too expensive. Because even for my build, there's items that I paid 4-5C for, which I then switched to an upgrade, and I sold it for 40 and 50C. The price has gone up by that much in just a couple days. It won't be
I
every
mean,
item.
even in 2 hours, we went from exalts being like 85 chaos to over 100 already,
Yeah.
and that was like within a 2 hour span. And it's like all of a sudden like, oh hey,
Yep.
wow.
All of a sudden it's a lot more expensive, and those things do creep up on you because you're stagnant or you're backsliding and the economy is moving forwards.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I recently did was changed my Atlas passive actually, for a more kind of mid-gamey, pushing towards endgame kind of build. So I kind of got off the essences, is where I originally started, um, and it was a little bit more expensive than I thought it was going to be. But it wasn't too bad. I mean, I probably spent like 60 chaos, but I get to switch from essences to going heavy on Harbinger and Harvest. So it's more of like a mid game kind of end game sort of thing instead of, just getting a bunch of essences in a in a map.
Yeah. Well, I think that about sums it up. Thank you very much. I hope that this will help a lot of different people who are thinking of rerolling right now. They aren't quite sure about their build, and they're looking at their favorite content creator or maybe someone on their friends list who's higher level and saying, oh, that looks like it'll be such an easier time. And hopefully this helps save them some time. They don't get set back as much. I mean, if you hate your build, you're going to have to reroll. But if you're just looking for something a little bit better, it's never worth it.
It's never worth. The grass is always greener.
Yep.
Just remember that the grass is always greener on the other side.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Again, be sure to check out Jason at his YouTube channel, Sir Free For All, which will be down below. And be sure to check out Sen because her artwork is amazing. So now, to end this video, I have a question for you. When was the last time you rerolled? And after you did, was your next build successful? Or did you get stuck in the trap, reroll again, and have your problems spiral further? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. And again, a special thanks to my patrons and YouTube channel members. If you want to support me, you can do so by clicking the links down in the description below or on screen right now. You can also support by making purchases through my Nexus page. Or if you just want to chill and hang out, be sure to join the Discord. Again, links for everything are down in the description below. Thank you, and have a great day.